And you've just heard Alexandra Staying, the new single by Tom Houston, and I'm delighted to be joined by Tom now. Oh, Tom.
Hello there, Alistair.
First of all, what can you tell us about Alexandra Staying?
Well, it's there's a range. I always like to include a wee range of conundrums that are not necessarily connected. So I think the first premise was, did Alexandra leave? And the song by Leonard Cohen had always bemused me and intrigued me at the same time. So there was a bit of a question: could I do the same with an inverse of bemuse and intrigue? So it was like that bit of halfway between leaving and halfway between being here. And then I started meeting a lot of non-binary folks, and there's always been a challenge to be intimate with using she or he. It always makes it more intimate. And so it was an attempt to be intimate using the they, which tried to slip in under the cover, not being noticed, because I'm not in any particular crusade or anything on it. So it was just, it would be to see if I could slip that in unnoticed. Yeah, because it's difficult. I mean, there was a point, I think originally it was she, and I did that the whole way through. And then I thought, what would happen if I just changed it to they? And could I still sing it with the same sort of intimacy? Yeah. I think a lot of, leaving aside the gender politics of it all, one of the things, the confusing thing is, it's like she did this or he did that. Anyway, that is almost an aside. So yeah. It's the main thing was almost between worlds, and a bit of a mystery about what the hell's going on here. Are they staying, are they leaving, who are they?
Yeah, mystery, that's a good way of putting it. Absolutely. And it's released ahead of your new album, Pushing the Pool Door. What can we expect from that?
A little bit of mischief, a little bit of chaos, and a mixture between spoken word and song. So there's 10 tracks on it. 4 originated with me in my, I call it the den, which is the studio here in the Clock Mill. So the spoken word pieces were developed there by me and my DAW, not my dog, my DAW. The other ones are more traditional songs, and it was done very well. The album was pulled together very quickly between my studio, which called the Den, and Neil McCall's studio in London, which he calls Atticus. And we changed files over and we worked very quickly. So there's a range of spoken word soundscapes and songs with Neil's considerable genius and my inconsiderable genius and my mischief.
And when's it coming out? When can we hear it?
If I'm allowed to, so you can get it from my website, and it was going to be featured on Bandcamp today, and I've had a big jolt because it's not. It's sort of like, I'm thinking, God, it's like it's got to be me that's made the problem. So you can get it on Bandcamp, you can get it on my website, and you can get it on my digs and my gigs, and sort of personal contact. But you can't stream it because, it's a bit of for me, it's a bit of a waste of space to go down that route. So it's kind of got to be through my website, Bandcamp, or gigs, personal contact.
And it's physical copies of it then?
Yep. I have. There's the CD there. So there's physical copies and downloads.
Excellent. And you talked about people being able to pick them up at your gigs. You've got a couple of launch nights coming up for the album.
I did have a couple.
Right.
The Edinburgh one, which was going to be in Leith, the venue has undergone refurbishment, ain't going to be ready. So I don't want to talk about the Edinburgh one.
Okay, fair enough. Talk about the Glasgow one, since I'm sitting 5 minutes away.
It's the Glad Cafe on St Andrew's evening, the 30th of November. Glad Cafe, Glasgow. Tickets in advance, tenner. And you can, there's a Facebook event, and I think it's at Tickets Scotland, and it's sponsored by Sounds in the Suburbs, who've got their own brilliant website as well for tickets in advance.
Excellent. And what can people expect of the live setup? Is it yourself? Are you supported, or how's it going to be?
Two answers to that question. It's me on my own song. And I just had a quote from the good Tom Robinson, who I did a gig with in October. And he said, riveting and captivating. So watch out, you might get riveted and captivated. But I've never done any welding, so but I shall try and do that with a bit of so it's a mixture of song, spoken word, but I like to that thing about know your audience. So there's little gentle sort of interactions with the audience throughout the evening, because I think an evening of me singing songs, so there's twists here and there, and the audience can enter in as much as they feel comfortable with. And
I mean, you say it's going to be you on your own, but you have been collaborating recently. I was thinking about the release of Bell Electra, which features Pinlight. Is that something you enjoy doing, collaborating with others?
Absolutely. I think when I mentioned they're developing the den and the studio, one of the pleasures of that is sharing files and sharing ideas and being able to I suppose, during COVID, that was much, well, one had to ignite oneself that way rather than through meeting others. So there's been quite a bit. There's 3 or 4 collaborations on the go, and inviting in guest narrators or co-writers or whatever. So I had a variety of cunning schemes, of which Bell Electra was one.
So does that allow you to try different types of music, as you say, different ideas, different schemes? Is that something that it's quite a good way? It's a kind of separation from Tom Houston solo albums.
Absolutely. I mean, I did have an earlier career as a freelancer where I worked in community arts, participatory arts, and I did a lot of soundscapes for community shows. And I really enjoyed building an atmospheric vibe, of which the cast would enter into, as it were. So I'm sort of revisiting that with the spoken word pieces, where you kind of create a soundscape of which either I improvise or put words on it. And then that other aspect of collaborating with other artists and being able to share files and seeing if one thing triggers another. Also, part of that, I've just completed what was called the Irish album, because the studio is in near Belfast. Mm-hmm. It's now called Everything in the Delicatessen. It's a new album, but that was created by sharing files, across the Minch. Maybe that's
no, that's interesting, because it sounds like you found a way to keep working during all the periods when you had. But did you miss, now you're going out to play some live gigs again, was that something you really missed?
Absolutely. I called it the resonance, and that kind of resonance of meeting of, which we're trying to sort of find between Zoom, here. Yeah. But it was a real miss. And sometimes the closer you got through a Zoom to a human contact, the more almost painful it was, because it reminded me of what was missing. Yeah. And sometimes the actual tone of the musical instrument was, am I allowed to swear, but I won't, but bloody awful. And and you knew at the other end, I don't know, there was a cello or there was a fiddle or keyboard, and you weren't getting that resonance of the extra qualities. So that in sort of two ways of the resonance was so missing, and yet to get it, we were kind of settling for second, third best or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think at the beginning, when people were trying to use Zoom to be social, I think that the kind of joy of that, if there ever was one, ended pretty quickly, and it was like, no, this is just reminding us of not being together.
Yeah. Yes. I think I remember seeing some of them. I mean, this is going back a bit in terms of to COVID or lockdown, but seeing some of Jackson Browne's input, right. And he seemed to cut through it, and I got that whole spirit back from it, and it was just like so nourishing. Yeah.
So but sorry,
I was going to say, but obviously slightly, changed time. So on Glad Cafe, you get the whole shebang.
Yeah, that should be a really great gig. It's a great venue, one of my favourites.
Yeah. So
this is your 5th solo album. I wanted to ask you how kind of making and releasing music has changed since you've been doing it.
Well, the very first one goes back a long way, and that was a cassette only. Mm-hmm. So that yeah, so that aspect of it is quite changed, but the most recent ones have all come over the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. And I was with a band, not there anymore, but we did 2 albums as well. So it's in effectively 7 albums over a 10-year period, which seems quite prolific.
It is.
But yeah, but I think the main change is the sheer kind of quantity of new music that's getting released every day. Yeah. Onto the to Spotify. So it really is a kind of changed climate out there. I don't even know I can even describe what it's like.
No, you're absolutely right. It's almost overwhelming at times, the amount of new music that is being released. So much so that I think you often have to try and avoid listening to stuff that you already know, or the people that you already know. It's quite difficult to find exciting new stuff sometimes.
Yeah, well, also, I have whether a theory of that or the music, most of us, the music we know, it kind of gets into our bloodstream, I don't know, between the ages of 15 and 25. And that's the go-to place for most of us. So, and I've not got into anyone's bloodstream at that age between 15 and 25. I'm very much an outsider. Interestingly, and this is one of my claim to fame. I was doing it was a record store day in Stirling, just playing out in the street, and a wee boy Ewan, aged 5, came up to me clinging a tenner. He was desperate to buy the CD, actually pushing the pool door because it was dining by myself. And I didn't have it there ready for him, but I feel like there's a new generation spearheaded by Ewan who wants to buy CDs. So the tide is turning.
Oh, well, I hope that is the case. Tom, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to me.
Right. Thank you, Alistair.
And this is, before we go, we're going to hear the song Gloria. So can you tell us a bit about that before we play it?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you take the dog for a walk and sometimes the dog takes you for a walk, and Gloria was definitely one of those. I think listen to it and see what you think.
Fantastic. This is Tom Houston and Gloria.